It is 12 minutes after 1 o'clock on Power 98.7. Alex is in our production booth and Oza is pressing all of the buttons today. Let's get into our Tuesday Psychology of segment where we talk about everything that makes life life. Whether it is internal, right, the way we think, the way we are, whether it is soft skills or hard skills that we need to go out there into the world with in order to survive, whether it's healing, whether it's oddities, right? I mean, that's how we kind of started this right in the beginning, you know, falling in love with someone who's behind bars. I know TLC on TV makes entire programs like that, and we love to talk about that because it happens out here in the world and builds up to who we are in society. So today, we are going to talk about, I want you to brace yourself first, just breathe. No one's fighting with anybody. We're talking about the psychology of men who father multiple children with different women and then disappear from all of those children's lives, perhaps. Perhaps they're favorites that they decide to work with more than others. It's a deep and very layered topic that many families are silently grappling with, asking what leads some men to have children and remove themselves from those children's lives, emotionally, physically, or both. And please note that we are talking about the psychology of the men themselves. So, whereas I know nothing happens in a vacuum, I already know what kinds of answers we're going to get. Blaming this one and blaming that one for not being able to be a father. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but I'd like us to slow down to introspect. If you are a man who comes from a family that the father had multiple children all around the area codes, or if indeed you are finding yourself becoming that man, it's easy to judge. But today, there is no judgment. We're talking about the psychological roots of this pattern, the legacy of unresolved childhood trauma that this pattern leaves, and also, years later, seeing your own son repeat the same behavior. What does that do to you? So let's look at this and all of the tolls, particularly on the children, particularly economically on the raising of the children and the ripple effects that this has. Men who father multiple children with different women and then disappear. Social worker at UNISA's Department of Social Work, Dr. Andrew Spalmer, joins us right now, and you can too on 0861 987 000. You can also on 083 303 7093 send me a text, WhatsApp, or a voice note, very short, maybe 30 seconds, please. And you can also get in touch with us if you want to post on X with the hashtag PowerLunch. Dr. Spalmer, it's been a while. How are you?
Pabi, I'm doing well, and to your wonderful listeners, Power FM, and thanks very much again for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
I had some flu, but okay, we are kicking, we are making it.
Yeah, listen, I had pneumonia about 2 months ago, so whatever's going on is going to at some point catch you, but you will get over it, okay?
Indeed. We will survive this.
Why is this so triggering to even talk about? Men who father multiple children with different women. Even getting it out of my mouth seems taboo to talk about. Why do you think that is?
And it's happening, Pabi. It's happening to me. It's happening a lot of men. But Pabi, I think you put it rightly when you say that we're looking at the psychological part of it. And, after speaking to Alex, I had to really do a thorough introspection because already when she spoke to me, I was already putting up my defense mode as a man. And she had to calm me down and really that now just talk about the psychology part of it. Look, when you meet Pabi, you are not just meeting Pabi, you are meeting her background. you are meeting her father, whether present or absent. You are meeting the uncle, every person that played a role in Pabi's life, you are meeting with those people. So for us as men, and I want to talk about us as men, we are influenced by a lot of factors. And we cannot look at this without looking at the legacy of apartheid. During the rush hours of gold in Johannesburg, the system, the government of the day, took men from rural areas who were doing farming and others and took them to the areas of Johannesburg, Westvatersrand in the time, to mine for gold. And that dismantled the family structure, where a lot of men did not have the example of men to look for. So we'll talk firstly psychologically about the attachment, that early insecure attachment to caregivers, especially for men, for fathers, can lead to situation where the attachment style of a man can be avoided, which then men can struggle with intimacy and emotional connection and long-term commitment. And this can lead them not to be connected to their own children. They don't see any problem of not being part of their children. And also we got some things that are pushed by culture, where we believe that a man is a man because of the multiple relationships that he's having, to such an extent that he doesn't care much about the seed that he's leaving behind, but is concerned about the number of women that he can be able to be in relationship with. That is why one will move from one relationship, he leaves the child and go to another and not even care about the children. And those are some of the things psychological. But also, we've got social learning behavior, because we see and we imitate. I grew up without my father, and it was a challenge for me to be a father to my children because I could not. And the woman that you get married to or in relationship, she's expecting you to be there, especially if the person that you are with grew up with a father. They've got that expectation to say that be there. But you are expecting me to be something that I don't even have a reference. When you did needlework, you had the cover, the brown cover, where you cut a pattern. And through that pattern, you are able to do multiplication of that design. So the question, Pabi, is how do fathers who were never fathered themselves, with all the cultural factors, design a pattern to be fathers who are present in their children's lives?
You're making me think of this artist in America who has, how many does he have now? 12? 7? Yeah. He's a rapper, and one of the questions that he's often asked is about how does he connect with any of those children if there are so many. Like, how are you going to be a present father for 12 children? Is that even possible,
But the question is, was it connection era or moyena? What does connection mean to him?
That's interesting. So let's break down what connection could mean to men generally.
For a man, if you remember, I don't know whether your listeners will know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes,
where,
of course.
Maslow says that there are basic needs of survival, food, and then from there shelter, and you go up. So for a man who grew up with a father or a parents who could not provide food, for him, attachment is food. The emotional connection, being there, talking about how is not important. And then for someone who grew up in the family, Oswana, like me, coming from Limpopo, I grew up with a shameful shelter where I didn't even have a shelter. For me to build a house and to be able to pay school fees for my children, it can be that connection that I'm having with my children. And that is it. And that is why most of the time parents get frustrated with this generation that are saying that you are not there for me. And that parent will say, but I'm taking you to school. I am giving you provision. I drive you to school, something that my parents never did for me. You are ungrateful. Whereas these children don't start from the basic needs and shelter. They start from affection.
Yeah.
And that can be one of the problems, that this description of how you talk about emotional connection, it comes from because of our exposure as parents or as a man.
I mean, I really enjoy the idea of looking at the cycle as a whole, right? So in history, this is what happened to disconnect the home, fine. And then you see, that you have no one to emulate. You have no one who has set the example for you. And that can be very, very difficult because you don't really know how to start or where to start. But the idea of then fathering multiple children, if you don't know how to father, why father, first of all, in the first place? And then why father these multiple children? Or is it the fact that you watched your father multiple children?
Yes, indeed. That could be the reason. But remember that, Pabi, we've got some addiction that some men are suffering from. And it's looked at as masculinity. To have multiple relationships and to have children can be culturally to say that, you are a man because you got a number of children. And that can be also one of these. If someone is addicted to sex, for example, they can move from one relationship to another. And they don't even care whether they are living, because what is important for them is to meet that need. So for them, about your emotions, how you feel about leaving the child is not a big deal for them. And for them, Pabi, is the question of when I have multiple children with multiple women, it can be, that misguided assertion of power to say I'm in control. So all these children are mine.
Yes, so break this down for me, because ngindoda mina, these children are mine, is not in and of itself a negative thing, right?
No.
I imagine if I had 4 or 5 children, I would be quite proud of this crew that I've brought to the world, that I'm nurturing, that I'm caring for, that I'm there for, right? So in and of itself, that's not negative. We get a lot of feedback when we talk about toxic masculinity. And so I want to ask you, ngindoda mina is masculinity, right? As a man, it's beautiful to have, these are your children, your offspring, the seed, literally, of you. But toxic masculinity then is where you drop kubidi seeds all over the world.
And you don't even care for them.
Yeah.
And that is where it becomes a problem. The question is that this person is so more concerned about his ability to reproduce himself that he doesn't care about the life that he has brought to this earth. That life needs him. That life needs support. So that is all that he's concerned about.
So
and
that's,
in most of the time, in most of the time you find that he's doing what was done to him, and he doesn't see anything wrong with it.
I was about to say, so yes, you are handing something to the next generation, but you're actually handing them the pain, the suffering, the confusion that you had as a child too.
Yes, and you are not aware of any other alternative. And it takes time, it takes exposure to go to another family where you see this man playing with his children, being present. And we should admit, Pabi, that we are seeing lots and lots of men who are now going for their children. But there are laws also that are intentionally have children, and they don't have an idea of how to be there for their own children. They don't even see a problem when they fail to pay for maintenance or even fail to attend events where their children are involved, because the children are so many that it is a challenge for them to cover them all, but it gives them that pride.
Yeah, yeah. I was just bringing that in because there's a lot of pushback about when we use the term toxic masculinity. And I think people misconstrue it as that masculinity is toxic. No, 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 no. Masculinity is necessary. It's handsome and sexy. It's proper. It's necessary in the building of our society. We need masculinity. And we need femininity. But when it gets toxic, it's where we're describing things like this about trying to prove your masculinity through sexual prowess, or prove your masculinity through having, a whole barrage of children that you don't care for, that you're not there for, to prove that, I am a man, my swimmer's work, so to speak. And so that's what I was making the point of, that it's not about masculinity. No, it's about when masculinity goes wrong, and these are the spaces that we find ourselves in. Kaya is on the line in Edenvale. Hi, Kaya.
Good afternoon, Papi and your guest. Very much interesting topic.
Thanks for joining us. Hi.
I want to firstly start by answering your earlier question of whether it's possible to be present on all of them. It's not. Basically, you will be present on the last child, because the possibilities are that with the last child, you are still with that partner, but it's not possible to be present on all of them, And then with regards to people moving from rural areas to urban areas for work and then ending up with multiple, I can't discount that, Yeah. But my observation, Pabi, is that people outgrow each other. They meet young, and especially those who are very much interested careers,
Interested in their careers, Kaya?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They meet young.
I'm listening.
Careers, they become senior managers, and the other one is still trapped there, and then they decide that, no, look, this one no longer fits my lifestyle, or the kind of ambitions that I need to have, and they decide to part ways because they had decided, look, we have outgrown each other, and I don't think you are suitable. In the kind of lifestyle that I want to lead. It's very painful, but unfortunately, in my observation, some of these things, Pabi, are unavoidable.
But hang on, if you're talking about a relationship, Kaya and Pabi, we're dating, and I find that Kaya wants to be a billionaire, and that takes up all of your time. So the 3 children that we have together are still our 3 children, even if we decide to move on from our relationship. So I'm trying to link the idea of, planting a seed and not looking after it. Where's the disconnect or the connection to your story that you're telling me, Kaya?
Yeah, so what happens is that now I've got children with Pabi, and I've got children with Tombi, for example.
Damn, that movie. I knew it.
Tombi wants more time with her and her children, right? And I want to make time again for these children. I do partially, but it happens that also, also my commitments in terms of having to make a living gets in between, and you end up not really having enough time for the others that are there. It's really not easy. You can try, but it's not easy.
Okay, thank you, Kaya. Thank you very much. Dr. Andrew Spalma is our social worker on the line with us as we go to our Power News Bulletin. We're talking about men who father multiple children with different women and then disappear. It's just after 1:30.
Learn something new and connect with like-minded contributors in health, wealth and relationships. This is Power Lunch
with Pabi Moloi
on Power 98.7.
I love this conversation today because I want it to be a real gentle conversation, really holding your hand as we talk about some of the aspects of your own life that may have affected your fathering of new children, and perhaps some of the aspects that think or make you think that, there's some sort of legacy when you have many children. Our Psychology of segment on Power 98.7 today is about men who father multiple children with different women and then disappear. Our social worker is Dr. Andrews Palmer, who is joining us on the line. And Doctor, let's talk quickly about the previous caller that we had. And he talked about how it's very challenging to take care of multiple children. And I doubt he was even getting up to 4, 7, 10, 9. But I think what I did piece together is that whoever you have a child with and you remain with will be the children who you look after the best and spend the best time with. If you split up, there's a sense of moving on from the relationship and the children.
Indeed, I think he's right. But one of the things that he said was when you part way with the partner because they no longer fit your purpose. But I want to say that, as Kaya said, that are you parting ways with your partner or are you parting ways with your children? Because Pabi, children, in as much as we think that they are too much complicated, there come a time where children want to be with you between the age of 0 and 4. And once they go to crèche, they're no longer much interested in you. They talk about more of the teacher. And when they get to be 12, 13 teenagers, they don't even care. When you say, I'm going to town, bye-bye, they're in their rooms. So there's this particular space and small things that matters to children that we don't even have. Children don't need these expensive things that we are buying for them. All the children need is that 1 hour, 30 minutes
time
that you can go and spend with them at the park, or you go buy a simple meal and go and swing them at the park. They will remember that for the rest of their life than the things that we think that our children need. So part ways with the partner that you think that they are no longer compatible with you, but don't part with your children.
Mara Mamela, our topic is men who father multiple children with different women then disappear. So that 1 hour swinging somebody and having a simple meal, Bana Bali 17, I mean, ofitla ning Limpopo, Mpumalanga, to get all your kids in the swing.
Look, Pabi, even if you go to Limpopo once, a lot of men from Botlokwa, Giyani, Venda, who used to go home twice a year, but they will be able to be there for their children. So let's encourage our men. It is a challenge, and Pabi, because some it's more of when they feel that they can't do anything about it. And this is one of the strange theory that I picked up, to say that when you feel that your goal is unattainable, men retreat from their role and feel that they are ill-equipped. There are a lot of men who feel that when they feel that they cannot do it, they withdraw. They can even withdraw their time, they withdraw their resources because they feel that it is not enough. And that is what is also, especially where there is poverty, where I lose a job and I was a man who's known, then I can easily withdraw. But there are some who fail dismally. We failed dismally even to be part of our children. And we feel that running away, putting your head in the sand and act as if these children don't exist will help you. And from there you go to a new love, because new love, Pabi, is always feels good.
It's like a second chance.
There's a chance.
Yeah. But, there's a lot of thought, and many people will talk about this. TikTok is one of my favorite places because people talk heavy things, heavy family secrets. Yeah, it's more pa. On TikTok, and people talk about how they don't kind of look back with regret of their father leaving. Because if he was the type of person who would do that, do you want that quality of human in your life? And this is people who now are in their 20s and 30s. So they've gone through a lot of therapy. They've gone through the understanding of why they, maybe attract such terrible partners into their own lives, right? Recreating the historical part. And so it's quite an interesting thing that people think that they're punishing their children, but their children are going to move on.
The children will make it without you
as
a father, and they will grow. And the unfortunate thing is that when your child is growing and you were not part of their lives, it's even hard for you as a man to want to go back into their children's life. And, it is important that as men, we realize we come to an understanding, especially when we are talking like this. And any of your listeners feel that, look, I have made a mess, I have left my children. The best thing that you could do as a listener today is to go back and reach out. And when you reach out, you don't reach out because you want them to accept you back. To say that I have messed up and I was not matured enough, but I see better, I can do better. If this show has to end with one man being able to reach out to all the children to say, look, I have messed up and I'm sorry about it, it will be very much important, because some of the things we do them because we don't understand what we are doing. And lastly, I want to say, Pabi, that most of the time we hate what has happened to us, and our hatred then cloud us to see ourselves repeating the same thing because we hate it, and when we hate it, we don't see ourselves doing it, and when we do it, we don't even realize that we are doing it.
Let's speak to Sipho, who's in Mamelodi. Hi, Sipho.
Hi, Pabi, how are you?
Great, thank you. Go ahead with Dr. Palmer.
Great. My onus of this whole situation is, I think, number one, this is a moral conversation across the entire nation when it speaks to men, because it's about trying to blend in societal standards as what it takes to be a parent when you're a man. It's no longer a question of how much you can father or how many of them you can produce, but the kind of statute of limitations that society has set for us to say, if you're going to have children, you need to take care of them in a certain way.
You need to what them a certain way?
You need to be working. You need to be in a structured environment where you can afford to pay school fees. You can afford to pay this and that, And then there's a Palisa that you've been dating. You decide to have a child with Palisa, and then Palisa decides to, out of the blue, have some much higher standards than what you can afford. And then you want to put a child in a school fees where you can pay like 3,000, and Palisa decides, no, I want to take them to a school that can pay 10,000 rands a month because I know you earn 30,000, so you're good for it. And then that in itself sometimes kind of puts a dent into the relationship you're supposed to be building with that child, especially if you and the mother are not dating anymore. And then now it gets you to turn your back on them for whatever period of time until you decide, okay, you know what, let's try this again and see if it's going to work out.
Is Palisa contributing to that? I don't know what number you use, but are you contributing to the school fees together, or Palisa is just looking at you like, Sipho, make it happen?
Yeah, you might be. There might be cases where you could be both contributing, but there might be some other cases where you're the only one contributing. But either way, in both scenarios, Palisa will probably try and have higher standards than that because she's thinking that's much better than what you are paying. Because a friend of mine's child is going to such a school, and then you need to fit the bill for that.
Come on. Palisa can think for herself. Maybe Palisa just had the dream always. Why must women always be influenced by somebody else? We have our own brains, I would see, Paul.
But I get women sometimes think emotionally, and then we as men are the ones who are supposed to think strategically about these things. And that's where we kind of clash. And then it kind of stirs this whole pot of resentment and people fighting, squabbling and stuff, And that's also bad for the child as well.
Of course, it's terrible for the child. I think it's absolutely terrible for the child. Thank you, Sipho. We have so many callers coming through. But, I mean, what do you think of that, Dr. Palmer? If you happen to have a whoopsie baby, but you and your life were always going in one trajectory, which is up. And you decide that, I would see, even though you are baby daddy, it's fine, but this is where I have always imagined, or I would like to have my child go upward mobility, whatever I can afford. And then, why do you feel so bad about yourself that you turn your back? Sipo said that you may even turn your back on your child.
Yes, because we're going back to toxic masculinity, where you feel that your manhood is based on your ability to provide. And when you fail to provide, then you go into your shell, into your cocoon, and you even now detach from the child. Because most of the time, we cannot move away from the fact that with the laws that are there in our country, women empowerment is here, and women are getting more chances. But still, we can play our role as men in our children's life. And I still repeat, Pabi, that it's not about the finances. It's about your presence and your time for your child that you have made yourself.
Let's speak to Cindy, who's on the line. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Pabi. How are you?
Good, thanks. Welcome. You're on air.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the great topic. I'm always fascinated to look in the deeper ways of thinking, to find a gap, to find a cultural gap in these kinds of conversations. I know we live in a Western society, but I feel like the problem that men are facing is deeper than that, because you grew up with, our forefathers have left kids, and the history is repeating itself.
Yeah.
And I really do feel disappointed when I watch the show like Kumbule Kaya.
Yeah.
In most cases, it's always men that are being looked after, like the kids looking for their fathers. I know women are there as well. But my point is, maybe in future, if you can maybe invite an African spirituality expert, a psychologist, I know some of them, they are specializing in African spirituality, to solve this challenge, to address this kind of a topic of psychology and mental related.
That's exactly what our topic is today, Cindy. So you're saying what you'd like to hear more of is almost a cleansing of the historical kind of action that happened that leads us to repeat history over and over again.
Yes, because now this kind of topics, it's now normal in our society. Whether it's not your sister who the father left the child, it's just close to us. I'm not saying it's the only African people that are
No, for sure. Yeah.
But in most cases, can you go deep down and check our history lineage and cleanse our family structures, because we have inherited the wrongdoings of our forefathers.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, my darling. Your thoughts on that, Dr. Palmer?
Yeah, indeed. That's why when I started, I touched base on the history of South Africa and in the South African context, where men were removed from the traditional farming and lifestyle to go to the cities. That in itself has got the legacy that we are still living to it even now, where families were disrupted, the relationship of a man and his family was disrupted, and we're still reaping from those decisions even now. We cannot act as if it never happened. It happened, and we are harvesting from that legacy even now, because we can have children here in Pretoria. I can have a family. I can still have a family in my talks where I come from, and find that they don't even know each other. And I'm seen as a powerful and a great man, and I'm celebrated for that. And these are things that some cultural practices that we condone certain behaviors, where your manhood is seen by the number of women that you are having, your manhood is seen by the number of children that you are having. And those are the kind of things that we must discourage, and we must look at how do you provide for these children. And as you said, it is not wrong to choose to have a number of children, but why do you leave them and not be part of their lives?
I also was going to say to Cindy, there are many people in African culture who don't necessarily believe in cleansings and things like that. So then where does that leave them in, society? But it is important to have this conversation. I like having conversations from every single angle you can imagine, from the Christianity to the psychology to the African spirituality. And so we'll see if we get permission to do that very soon. Let's have a listen to our first voice note, please.
Good afternoon, Pabi. This is David in Rustenburg.
Hi,
your topic is a trigger somewhat for me because within my family tree there is a cousin who has fathered 17 kids with different women. 17 as in 17. And the most painful part about this situation is that my cousin doesn't really have a real relationship as a father with these kids. He can't tell you as to the oldest kid as to what's happening in their life and so forth. But the most painful part is that when the mothers, quote unquote, they get fed up with the responsibility of being a single parent, they go all the way to my cousin's place. They knock, and my cousin's mom, the gogo in this case, now is left with the burden of raising these kids all by herself and my late, Ramoholo. And the question that we've always been battling within the family is, why do you continue to do this? And do you understand the pain that it really leaves us as a family, especially on the mom who's a pensioner? And now she has to be using her SASSA grant to take care of herself and these many kids.
I thought you were saying the mom of the kids is a pensioner. No, Gugu is a pensioner having to look after this many children. I mean, when you get up to 17, something pathological is going on, right?
Yeah, it's something deeper than the action.
Yeah.
And always we want to look at the end product. We don't want to look at the root cause of these things, that where do they come from? Because if someone has got an addiction, they don't see anything wrong. What they want to feed is their addiction, and that makes them feel comfortable. After the fruits of their actions, they don't care much about it. And unfortunately, we're talking about human beings here.
Yeah. It's also very difficult. I mean, why? How am I going to say what I'm going to say? Sometimes the mothers of these guys, these boys, right? If your son's, one of them, their 17 children is brought to your house,
yeah.
I mean, at what point are you having a conversation with your son and saying, I didn't raise you like this? And also, I'm an old lady. I will look after grandchildren with pleasure, but do you send them money? Do you send them access to better education, etc.? And then they can all come here on the holidays. It's fine. Bali's 17. But then you've got to make provision for me to be able to feed them as well. Like, I often wonder what those conversations are between the mother and the fathers of the 17 children.
And I think Sipho said that the mothers sometimes goes and drop the children with the grandmother.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. It's exactly what I'm saying.
And but to find that the father is not even involved or doesn't even care. And that is where the challenge is. You're right. That is where the challenge is. Because if he doesn't care to even look for them or even to ask what has happened, why did you drop the child here, then is a challenge because it continues. It's a behavior that is rewarded. And any behavior that is rewarded will continue to not stop.
Let's listen to Tsepo's view, because I think this is quite interesting at this point in our conversation. Tsepo, welcome.
Hi, Pabi and Dr. Yes. So the one element... Yes, Doctor. So the one element I wanted to highlight, so especially amongst Black people. So in the past, what they used to do when a guy and a girl gets a baby, normally that child would stay with the family. And what the woman's
the mom's family, yeah.
Yes. And then as a result, they kept them, and even to the point that when they get married, they would even give the child to adopt it to the guy who married. So unfortunately, most of them, they don't get married to the first guy we have kids with. And to control that part whereby you've got a baby daddy coming into the house of the another man, they would stop him from coming at home to see the child. So now, if you're unfortunate, you don't get married, then it meant that almost every child that you have, you would not have access to it. So those are the cultural problems.
Culturally, right? Because it's not the case legally.
Yes, no, legally it's not the case.
Okay.
But you know how many people are still following our customs and so forth.
Which I think is good if you work them in tandem with each other. So if there's a respect for, listen, understand that this is why we do this, to protect the child. This is the mother's family. Not to get angry, not to motibela, but because he's important in their lives. But legally, there are many, many things that then those fathers want to do or want to have or want to demand and want to control, which, it's not possible. So if you're able to work with each other with respect, I think that's one of the best ways to go about it.
Yeah, just the last point. But, the other problem is, normally when we part ways as a boyfriend and girlfriend, it's either I've cheated or my girlfriend cheated. So one, the mother does not want me. And most women that I know, they would not give access to the father. Well, given they were fighted by law, not so many guys knows how to go about it. And then you talk to other women, they actually tell you like, no, if the baby daddy is not intervening a lot, there is so much peace in their future relationships, in their new households, and those kind of things. Like I promise you, buddy, it drops so many guys, but it's not right. I'm not condoning it. Great topic.
Thank you, Abutepa. I thank you very much for couching it that way. And that is Palmer. Right in the beginning, I said, listen, often it deteriorates to blaming this one, blaming that thing, blaming that. But we're not talking about blame. We're talking about the psychology of why it is that many, many children will be fathered by one person. This is just a regular litu la talana, and then there are issues with the access and the custody. But it's interesting that he brings that up. So most women, if they are cheated on, will deny access
to the father. I think that is an interesting one. With Alex as our producer, I think it will be a topic to look at. But when women, and we're going back to where we didn't want to go, when we talk about women. Because we're talking about the psychology of men here. And the temptation, as Sepp has put us, to go back to the issue of women. But still, it's still the responsibility that when you've got children, as a man, even though you are separated from the woman, let's make efforts to look and to be part of our children's lives. Even if you can go and watch through the fence and watch your child play and be part of your child, it will be very much important for that child. Because you have to turn the things around, especially when you see that the same thing that has happened to your mother is happening to you and to your children. Because
I just think that there's very often, there's very often, and you spoke about it before, that even if it's 14 years, 20 years, whatever it is, go back, reach out. If you feel that, you know what, I actually can't do this anymore, reach out to your family, the family of the mother. Reach out, maybe not to the child, because I don't think it's their responsibility to make amends. That's why shows like Kumbulekai also irritate me, because, I mean, why must I go look for my father? You made me. I'm moving on with life. Now I must come look up a mountain for you. It's not going to happen. But the issue here is when you reach out with respect.
With respect, especially for the person that has been there for that child.
Yeah. Because you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. And that's okay if you come to turn around and you understand then, oh man, I must go back. Reach out with some compassion and humility. Because often people reach out with demands and threats and, oh my goodness.
And they feel that they want to do something. for you. You want something from them.
Yeah.
Or they want something from you.
And for 14 years, we've been fine, brother. For 17
And
years,
you
we've
did
been
well.
fine. So yeah, just that idea of compassion and really understanding where each comes from. But, if we're going to bring women into it, really respecting the fact that this is the person who stayed. Patience says, excuses aside, culturally, boys are raised with freedom and lack role modeling and guidance compared to a girl child. As a result, the concept of accountability and responsibility is far-fetched. It is therefore assumed that women must have it together, but it's an exception for men. To a degree, I understand that. I don't think it's about freedom and lack of role model as much as it's also pandering to. So if you watch a child who's got a sister, right, the sister must wash the dishes while he can play PlayStation the whole day. He's got to have responsibilities as well. Otherwise, he's also going to not manage in life. Nomgqibelo says, my dad passed away when I was just about to turn 12. And as your guest says, I still remember the love to this day, 40 years later. It was never about money. It just, as long as they were honest and about their situation. Absolutely. And then this one is a question, and we've so much run out of time. So I have to let it go. I apologize, David. Dr. Spama, how can we find you?
I'm on social media, Andrew Spama, or Talking Relationship with Andrew Spama. Just Google Andrew Spama. You should be able to find me there.
What an important conversation. Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew Spama.
Always a pleasure.
On Powerline.